Hello and welcome to another episode of Birth of a New Dimension. I'm Aurora. I will be your host for this 1 hour exploration of consciousness, metaphysics, multidimensional perception, and what I would call hyperspace reality. I also introduce myself as the Flying Rainbow Lasagne. I am an interdimensional hyper-torus that blends energy in a seamless continuum from the higher dimensional, less dense realms to the lower dimensional, more dense realms, such as the one that we are currently occupying with our third dimensional bodies in the fourth dimensional flow of time. One moment while I have a little drink. I am jokingly entitling this week's broadcast Interdimensional Movie Review. And the reason for that is it is quite rare for me to take the time to actually watch movies. In fact, I do not have television. I have not had television since 2012, January, and the reason for that is I am really an emanator of ideas, and the whole time that I've been here since 2001 as a walk-in, P.S., I'm a walk-in, not the original inhabitant of this adult human physical form. I came in when this body was 27 years old. I then became acculturated to life in the socioeconomic matrix on the surface of this planet. So I do not come from, or my consciousness that is speaking to you right now does not originate from this planet, although I have been interactive with Earth on many levels in many lifetimes. My consciousness has its origins in the stars. So it was a period of many years for me to integrate my stellar consciousness with the physical, cellular, biological structure of this body. So in doing so, I describe myself as a hybrid. And my purpose here is a bridge or an interdimensional tool that is bridging the information gap from higher dimensional realms to the greater, denser realms here. So I also liken myself to the Hubble Space Telescope in that I am connected to a community of observers. These hyperspace beings observe earthly reality through the telescope of my individual eyes and my perception, in much the same way that scientists, the current keepers of the cultural cosmology in this time and place, book time to observe life in the celestial heavens on the Hubble Space Telescope. So if you're a scientist and you're lucky enough or professional enough to book time on that telescope, you want to point it in the direction of interesting things. If you only have 2.5 hours to look at the universe, you want to look at something interesting. Well, now turn that paradigm around to Aurora as the space telescope that is being used to observe Earth culture, and that the observers in the hyperspace reality want to use their 2.5 hours that they book on my eyeballs as looking at something interesting. Oftentimes, my hyperspace guides are not interested when I have to perform mundane tasks such as doing the dishes, going to the grocery store, filling my car up with gas. These are not that interesting unless you are really interested in the immersion in this cultural time and place. For example, if you went back in time to France in, the 1600s, you might be fascinated by the type of carriages that they drove and exactly how they hitched their horses to their carriages. You might be fascinated by the wallpaper that was created to line the castle at Versailles. These are, cultural infatuations, and they're really for experts only. So I bring all of this up in order to describe my experience in my present situation as that the hyperspace consciousnesses that I'm connected to do not find it that interesting to watch most of what is presented on TV or in movies or in the media. Most of what is presented is not worthwhile, and it is literally mental and consciousness programming that is not intended to bring you towards sovereignty. So this is a pretty important understanding. Just like there is junk food or non-nourishing food for the physical form, and when you ingest that substance, it then behooves you to process it or carry around the burden of unprocessed food, aka fat deposits. So too is it with the information that one might ingest from the media, that there are different qualities of information. Some of it is low quality, just like some food is junk food. Some information is junk information. And when you ingest it, you then have to either process it or carry it around in its unprocessed state. And this is used to hobble humanity. I don't know if you're familiar with the term of hobbling. It has been applied to horses in a non-violent way where you tie something around their feet so they cannot easily run away. But in previous generations, it was applied violently and horribly to human slaves who had their feet broken or mangled so that they could not run away. This is what is happening to your mind when you watch television. Your mind is being horribly broken and mangled so that you cannot escape from your captors. Okay? So I went through a period of acculturalization where I immersed myself in television and media and pop music so that I would know what is here and so that I could develop the proper immune system to it. And in 2012, it became apparent to me, and I was guided, that it was time to focus on my inner development. No more time for eating junk food through my eyes. That was what I would do. I would sit down and eat junk food through my eyes while I watched TV. TV is not about the actual content of the show that you choose to watch. It is about everything else. It is about achieving the numbed and receptive and passive mind state that allows one to be programmed. I've used that word several times, so let us say that allows your organic computer to be controlled by others through the ideas and beliefs that they place inside of you. And I have a pretty strong immune system to the media, so when I go places that have the TV, like when I go to the gym to work out and I'm exposed to it, I can tell very quickly, like, oh, I don't really want that lipstick. I am being programmed by the media to desire that lipstick. Or it can be at whatever object it is. Like, I recognize it very quickly because I know what my resting state is. I know what my baseline resting state is, that I really don't need a lipstick or a new car or most of the things that are advertised. And it is only when I'm exposed to that advertising that I start to even develop those desires. And I'll also tell you that so much of the TV programming is about food cues, telling you that it is time for you to eat and encouraging you to go eat junk food. So the junk food of the mind encourages you to go eat junk food of the body. And I did an extensive teaching in Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, which is my weekly class that will begin again. The semester has just ended. We completed the 20-week cycle and will begin again in January of 2015. So I bring this up now in order to whet your appetite and make you want to sign up for the class. You can check out the course syllabus at flyingrainbowlasagne.com. Click on the online course tab or /online course, and you can read all about the lessons. I have a whole lesson recorded that is all about food, because food is our, right now, currently, strongest connection to divine consciousness. And this is why food in this time and place has been processed into the form of what I would call an aberration. Food that is not even food anymore. And that is intentional by your overlords in order to reduce your levels of consciousness. So, all of this as backstory to the understanding that I do not usually watch movies. It takes something very valuable or worthwhile for me to actually watch movies or watch a TV show or watch media. And I'm just going to pause this for a moment. I have to pause my recordings in order to make sure that they are not catastrophically lost due to power failure. So there are two movies that I recently exposed myself to and ingested the ideas from, and I chose them because they are worthwhile. They have information and ideas and belief systems that I recognized were for the upliftment of humanity. So first, it must be recognized that TV itself is programming, and when you go to watch movies, movies are like super programming. The cost to create a movie is so high and so prohibitive that really, in this time and place, most of the people who control resources are affiliated with the overlords who want to oppress humanity. So mostly, I'm making a sweeping generalization, but mostly resources in this time and place are in the hands of people who would like for you to remain asleep slaves and do not want you to awaken and claim your sovereignty. And for this reason, most of the entertainment that is created in order to keep you asleep and also harvest fear and anxiety from you. So there are a lot of movies that place people into a anxious or uncomfortable state of mind, or that bring up fears, and the reason for that is it's like you're intentionally being exposed to the nightmares that will create the negative lower vibrational food for these lower vibrational entities. However, just like any system, the system itself is neutral, and it's what it is being used for, or the intent behind the user. So the Hollywood system and the system of movies itself is neutral. It has been utilized mostly to oppress humanity, harvest energy from humanity, and keep you asleep. And there are some wonderful examples of movies and media that are used to awaken. And like a good example is the movie The Matrix. The first one, they kind of peter out as they go on. You know, the sequels are never as good as the first. And the whole point is that The Matrix had, in the basic format of the movie, an idea that has become a cultural shorthand. So now, in order to speak about the Maya, or the illusory existence that we find ourselves submerged in, it is a lot easier to say to someone, hey, it's just like that movie, The Matrix, than it is to go into a long explanation about the cultural matrix, let's say the cultural grid of belief systems that you're programmed into, and that is reducing your capacity to perceive clearly. So, cultural shorthand is one of the brilliant side effects of some of these movies. And also, movies can be used, like when you are sitting passively in that state of receiving programming, movies can be used to change and heal your inner proclivities and move you into a new mind state, that the programming can be positive and can actually be used to bring you in a, I would say, better direction, but let's say more desired direction towards personal freedom and latitude. One moment, going to take a little pause. So the first movie that I'd like to begin speaking about on this broadcast is called Interstellar. You can sense by the title my interest. However, there's lots of science fiction movies that come out, and some of them are totally not interesting to me for the reason that they are nothing greater than the traditional shoot-'em-up movies, but with aliens as the bad guys. And I will tell you that science fiction movies that cast extraterrestrials as the bad guys and that only present as a solution the solution of violence, that we must kill extraterrestrials or be killed by them, those movies are totally uninteresting to me. Interstellar is not that type of movie. It is And so now I'm just giving you my opinion. When I'll make a statement, understand that that's where I'm coming from. In my opinion, Interstellar is one of those movies that was created in order to reprogram the minds of receptive humans. So I can let you in on this information. There are, as much as there is a conspiracy of beings from the hyperspace realms that would like to oppress human consciousness and reduce your sovereignty and make you not be awake, there are beings that have the complete opposite intent. There is a wonderful group of beings whose intent is to educate humanity, give you the tools so that you can have your own freedom, so that you can create your own social structure and be self-sovereign and basically not have an external authority figure telling you what to do. So, of course, those are the beings that I associate with, and that is the collective that I originate from. So one of the things about Interstellar, when I watched it, I was watching it on my computer at home and I had my headphones on. And I realized very early in the broadcast that the soundtrack of the movie contains binaural beats. Binaural beats are often used to bring people into a higher state of consciousness. So the idea is the music or tones are slightly different between the left ear and the right ear. And this causes an interesting interaction between the hemispheres of your brain. And it utilizes some of the quirks of your neurology in order to harness your brain waves into a different mental state. So there are binaural beats in order to induce lucid dreaming, or to induce a particular meditative state, or an imaginative or creative state. You can achieve different, let us say, mental waves, be they alpha, delta, theta, and their concomitant mind states through the binaural beats being at the right frequency. So basically, you can train your brain to create certain mind states by exposing it to certain sonic frequencies. And if you're interested in looking into this and delving into the OBE, out-of-body experience, the Robert Monroe, Institute has a lot of binaural beats, and they were one of the first institutes to work with them. However, if you simply go on YouTube and do an investigation, you will find all sorts of independently created binaural beats to create all sorts of different mind states. So, first of all, the soundtrack to Interstellar has all of these beats and key codes in what you're listening to. And I noticed that the key codes would be louder and faster at certain points in the movie. And I started to understand that when I was hearing those codes, the oral or information for your ears, that there were events in the movie that were related to those codes. So if you watch this movie, you can see and correlate what I'm talking about, or if you've already seen it, maybe you perceived it. But there are some times when there are dramatic experiences in the characters, what they're experiencing on screen, and the soundtrack has these very high-pitched electronic beeping sounds. And what is happening during that moment is you have an opportunity to clear energies and negative reverberations from the past and create a new program into the future. In much the same way that achieving a psychedelic mind state by taking psilocybin mushrooms or ecstasy or some of the more cerebral psychedelics, that people find that they're able to go back and do soul retrieval and energetic healing from traumatic events because they are able to break the patterns of the past and create new patterns moving into the future. And this is very similar to what the binaural beats or the sonic key codes can do. So, for example, there's one part in the movie when the spaceship has landed on a planet that's all water and is going to be inundated by a giant wave. And when the wave is cresting and approaching the space vessel, the key codes on the soundtrack are very loud and you can really hear them. And I understood immediately that this was an opportunity to release negative fear patterns from the existence of time in Atlantis. So let's say previous, ancient experiences, and to be able to be clear of those emotional reverberations moving forward into the future. I've spoken on this broadcast before, and on my Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans teachings also, about the connection of this culture right now to Atlantis, the antediluvian, high technology, high sophistication culture that existed before humanity basically was brought down to the lowest depths of mentality and culture, which is what we would call, the Ice Age, and has had to recultivate itself and be acculturated from pretty much from point zero, from discovering fire and learning how to burn things to keep warm. That was a severe decline from the sophisticated culture of Atlantis, where not only did everyone have their mental and psychic faculties, there was incredibly sophisticated use of solid state or crystal technology combined with the psychic faculties and combined with interaction with galactic civilization. So many people who are alive right now also had existences associated with Atlantis, and a lot of the fear patterns that exist in this culture right now are directly tied to the experiences of that culture and its destruction and fall. So the reason why Atlantis fell was because of a misuse of technology basically like the type of computer that I am using right now, that is an externalized, non-organic, non-biological computer. That use of that type of technology and the desire to oppress other people or to control and manipulate other people's behavior, which we must understand that is the antithesis of unconditional love. Unconditional love says, I accept you. I accept your behavior. I accept your agenda. I accept your motivations. And I give you the space that you need in order to learn your life lessons. Of course, with the caveat that you do not have to learn your life lessons all over me. So I love you, even if you're an axe murderer, but I'm not going to present myself as a victim for you to murder so that you can learn that that's not effective. I will, safeguard myself from your presence. So this has a lot to do with people who had the experience of having high technology, misusing it and losing everything, and re-experiencing that here in this time and place. That really the aspects of culture that are out of control here, not utilizing technology that is in a way that's in tune with nature and in a way that is in tune with your individual biology and spirituality and emotions, that all of that is an outgrowth from the past. And in this, the reason why we live again is you have an opportunity to rectify the situation. This is why I am here as Aurora. I lived in Atlantis, but I did not have a corporeal form, and I was not humanoid. And I made choices and had an impact on the culture that led to the fall of human consciousness. And that's why I've returned in this lifetime as a walk-in, as the second parentheses of this journey in order to rectify the situation. By bringing the concept of the flying rainbow lasagna, it allows humanity to reascend to the heights that you fell down from or were smashed down from. Brief pause. So the premise is that reverberations from the past can be like ballast, like heavy sandbags that are weighing down a hot air balloon and preventing you from moving forward into the future. And that in order to move forward unfettered and not hobbled and mangled, it is necessary to release these emotional sandbags or release the detritus of the experience of having had, trauma in other lifetimes and in this lifetime. And I understood that Interstellar was or is an opportunity offered to each one of us by hyperspace guides to, let's say, erase or assuage the negative reverberations of the past. So that's just one part of it. The premise of the movie, I know this is the world's most long-winded synopsis ever, is that Earth is no longer a viable planet, that food won't grow here anymore, and that the only hope for humanity to survive is to find another planet to inhabit. But of course, most people here in this time and place are linear programmed in their mind, and they believe in the limitation of the speed of light because Einstein has been one of the bars on the mental cage that you are occupying for about the past 100 years. The idea of the speed of light being the limiting factor to you moving, like moving through space, moving your body, and to being able to achieve star travel. Because yes, if you had to fly in a clank metal spaceship to get to another planet, you'd never make it there in time. You would die by the time you got there. So this movie explores the idea of humans flying to a nearby wormhole, which connects this galaxy to another galaxy that also contains habitable planets. So in the movie's premise, astronauts or space pilots have to get into a clank metal spaceship and fly to Saturn, but once they get to Saturn, they go through a wormhole that brings them, to another place. And another aspect of this, so this is mental programming. First of all, we are trying to ease the restrictions that Einstein has programmed into humanity. The idea of a wormhole, which is sometimes called an Einstein-Rosen bridge, is giving a little bit of wiggle room to the absolute statements that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. It gives us some creative, I would say, room to think about and imagine possibilities that would not exist otherwise. And I'll also say this, the movie Interstellar is exploring the concept of death through the concept of planetary death. But humans have been programmed to expect physical cellular death unnecessarily. And one of the messages that I am here to bring is that it is not necessary to die on a cellular level as you have been programmed to. It is possible to ascend. And that gets more into the second movie that I'll be reviewing here on Interdimensional Movie Hour called Lucy. But before I get into that, people think that Earth as a planet is going to die and be no longer habitable, and that your only hope is to get off the planet. This is like saying, if you look at your physical body, like let's say you had some kind of prognosis, you have a disease and only 6 weeks left to live, and you look at your arms and legs and you say, well, this body or this planet is going to die, and the me, the consciousness that's in it or on it, needs to find somewhere else to be. This is cultural and biological and social programming to expect and accept death. And it is being erroneously applied to the planetary journey. So first of all, we as individuals on the surface of this planet have the option of ascension, and the planet herself is ascending. So you may choose whether you ascend or not. Ascend means that you will not go through the doorway of death as it has been described up until this point, that you will raise the vibration of all of your cellular biological matter to the point that it changes state without going through the intervening process of liquefaction and decomposition. The process of decomposition is a slow dismantling of the physical structure and allows for the release of consciousness to go and inhabit another physical structure. Ascension is about changing the basic nature of your physical structure so that you don't have to leave it behind. It's like saying you cannot carry sandbags with you on your journey, but you can take that sand and perhaps melt it down into glass and purify it in some way and turn it into another format of something that can come with you. The analogy isn't perfect, but I think that you are with me. Let me continue on with the discussion of Interstellar before I get into Ascension and Lucy. So the movie Interstellar is preparing humanity for the idea of leaving the planet, but we're not going to leave the planet in the way that the movie might make you think. And that's a little bit of a confusing statement. So let me be less confusing here. We are not going to leave the planet by having Earth die. Like no more plants living here, no more food able to grow here. That is not what's going to happen. We will leave the planet by becoming star traveling experts who do not require external technology in order to travel through space and time and consciousness. Real star travelers don't need a clank-clank metal spaceship. Real star travelers use wings of consciousness to make the soul's migration. So understand that Interstellar is offering you a concept, but don't get stuck in the literalism of the form. There's a good teacher in my heritage who would say, don't get stuck in the form. So that's whose voice is echoing as I'm saying this. So don't be too literal in the way that you think, oh, this is how we're going to leave the planet. Interstellar is offering you a wormhole of hope. This is a concept that you can use to get out of your current cage, the idea of a wormhole. And eventually you would say, well, if there's a wormhole in space and I have to get into a flying metal spaceship to then fly through the wormhole, why don't we just bring the wormhole down to like the surface of the Earth and I can walk out my front door and go into the wormhole? And then we're getting into it. Why do I have to walk out my front door? Why don't I just be in my bed? Maybe the wormhole could just be like directly underneath me in my bed and I could just go through it without even having to get out of bed. Just offering you expanded interpretations of this method. Like the more imaginative you can be, the better off you will be moving into this new reality paradigm. The less literal and less formal and less stuck you are in the expectations of the physical reality, and the more fluid and flexible you are in your capacity to imagine, better off you will be, I predict. So the movie Interstellar is kind of like a recruitment tool to gather together humans from the surface of the Earth who are appropriate candidates for moving into a multidimensional reality. And there's no right or wrong. For example, a lovely person that I know went to see Interstellar and walked out halfway through. They literally found the movie unwatchable, but I would probably say it was more likely unlistenable to them, because the key codes and the sonic information, if it is not harmonious with you and your chakra system and your belief system and your energy as it's flowing, you will feel a dissonance. It's like you are tuned to a different musical scale, and the music that is being played in that movie sounds jarring and atonal. It just means that that is not the appropriate reality for you. No judgment. There's no right and wrong. Life is a banquet, and you're being offered a variety of nutrients, and you get to choose what you need. So, for example, in this time and place, we have the opportunity to transcend death, ascend, change the basic nature of how you get off the planet. Not everybody's up for that, and there's reasons. Some people wish to leave behind their physical form. Some people are not enamored of that particular physical form, and they don't want to take it with them, but just in a changed and improved state. And I totally respect that. Like, what if you were born with a birth defect that meant that you had a cleft palate, or maybe you didn't have legs? You might want to have a body for your eternal body that would be one that has a perfectly formed face or perfectly formed legs. Or you might also feel that you're bored with the current parameters of your physical, let's say, the way you look, your physical appearance. If you are female, you might have explored all that can be explored in a female body, and maybe you wish to be male, or vice versa. Or if you are white, maybe you wish to be black. Or if you are short, maybe you wish to be tall. So I do not judge anyone from this time and place who says, you know something, I am choosing to die the physical death. Really, I have many friends right now, like I'm in my 40s and I have other friends of a comparable age who are dying. And the reason is they're choosing to leave the physical form, and that is their hyperspace portal, the physical death. However, I'm offering options through this new cultural program that you can ascend and basically redefine what your physical body used to be. the movie Interstellar is like a litmus test. When you go and watch that movie, at certain points, first of all, you have to understand you go to watch a movie to be amused or entertained by what's on the screen. But the makers of that movie are entertained and amused and informed by you. They come to watch you. So these beings that made this particular film are the good ones, or good, quote unquote, the beings that are interested in your personal freedom and your personal sovereignty and want to help to cultivate you to achieve that. That's why they made the movie. And when you watch the movie, they're watching you, and they want to know, well, do you think that the idea of getting into a spaceship and blasting through a wormhole is A, the most wonderful, magnificent opportunity you could possibly envision? B, a horrific nightmare, like leaving behind everyone that you ever knew and blasting forward into a future of total uncertainty, like a horrific nightmare? Or C, something that you would find only slightly less distasteful than, having to, let's say, visit a foreign country and learn a new language and radically change your eating habits. So, there's different levels of either xenophobia or xenophilia. Xenophobia being afraid of something new, and xenophilia being moving towards or embracing or being interested by something new. NASA puts people through, prospective candidates for their astronaut program, put them through different scenarios in order to test their reactions. Like, NASA does not really want to hire people for spaceflight who are claustrophobic for obvious reasons. So during the time that you're being interviewed for NASA, at some point you might be placed in a small confined space and not be told why and not be told when they're coming back for you, and they just observe you. Because if you're going to freak out, they want you to freak out then and there, not when you're like on a landing pad ready to blast off into space. And this is very similar to watching the movie Interstellar, that you are being tested for your personal reaction to the concept of leaving Earth forever. In the movie, that one of these space travelers has a mental lapse. He misses Earth so much that he becomes violent and psychotic. And at one point in the movie, there's very loud key codes during a violent struggle from that character with another character. And it is absolutely a litmus test and an opportunity for healing, because I've explained on this show in the past that those violent tendencies are actually part of the cultural and genetic detritus, the sandbags that have to be dropped from your personal emotional landscape in order to move forward into a multidimensional consciousness and be a true galactic citizen. You can't go into space with the violent monkey tendencies that you've got. And no offense, it's not even actually violent monkey tendencies. It's actually violent tendencies that come from a different race of star culture beings that have blended themselves with your human earthly heritage. Your human earthly heritage is actually quite peaceful. So there's questions in this movie about whether you as an individual could face leaving the earthly home, which is very similar to having the umbilical cord cut when you leave your mother's womb, and all of the other similar rites of passage, like you leave your mother's womb, eventually you leave your parents' household, and then eventually you strike out on your own. This is a litmus test to determine whether you as an individual could happily leave this planet. And there are other aspects of the movie that explore the nature of time and relativity. So the movie is trying to get people to understand that when you move faster, your experience of time changes relative to the people that are still moving slow. And if you take this to its logical conclusion, you understand that there are beings that are moving infinitely fast. They're moving at the speed of light and faster, and they are experiencing time differently than you and I. We are moving at a speed that is slower than the speed of light. And that's why we're made of matter. We're made of light that has the privilege of going slower than the speed of light. So in the movie, the astronauts who are searching for the new planet are moving very fast. They are moving close to the speed of light, and they are aware that everyone that they've left behind is still moving slowly, and that they are aging while the beings that are in space moving very fast are not aging. And at a certain point, they slow down in their speed in order to explore a new planet, and they understand that for every minute that they are out of their fast space flight, 7 years goes by on Earth. And they have an unexpected delay on the surface of the planet. When they return to their space main space vehicle, not only has decades have gone by on Earth during the 45 minutes that they were on the surface of the planet, but one of their compatriots they left on the ship has experienced 23 years of solitude. To the beings who went down to the planet, it was 45 minutes. To the guy that was left behind waiting on the space station, 23 years of solitude. This is trying to get humans to understand time in a more multidimensional way. And again, when the person returns to the space station and he receives the download of all of the decades of messages from back home, and he watches his family age in fast motion. And this is to give us an understanding of what it is like to be a hyperspace being, to occupy the realm outside of time. This movie is trying to help you to release old patterns that no longer serve and create and incept new patterns and new perceptions that will serve. And it's necessary to understand time in a totally different sense than the traditional linear sense if you wish to become a multidimensional being. A little bit more on this movie. At the very end, one of the characters goes through the black hole, and instead of being spaghettified, as science predicts, and yes, spaghettification is an actual word and concept you can look at. I'm not just bringing it up because I'm some kind of a flying rainbow lasagna pastafarian talking all about pasta. The character goes into the black hole, and then it's very much like the last 20 minutes of 2001: A Space Odyssey. He is on a hyperspace voyage, and he begins to see behind the scenes of time. And there's an excellent visual representation of this astronaut being behind the walls, kind of like where all the duct work and electrical wiring would be in a house, and looking at scenes from his life and from his loved one's life in the interior space of the house. And it's a lovely allegory to give to people so you can start to understand what it's like to be a hyperspace being. I won't go further with that because I don't want to spoil the movie for you. I feel like I've done a good job of getting you to understand that this movie is worth seeing. To watch it in a receptive state, observe your own feelings and your own reactions, and really make your choice, or really be very honest with yourself. Does this sound like a reality that you would like to participate in? Would you like to leave behind the limitations of Earth and earthly culture and Earth society and move into the unlimited world of hyperspace reality? So, good segue into the second movie that I watched, called Lucy. So this is also the style that the movie is in reminds me a lot of the way that most people in this time and place now ingest media. It reminds me of a YouTube where it cuts between the actions of the main character and the informative lecture of a professor in a lecture series. And the premise of the movie is a young woman is being used as a drug mule to smuggle drugs, in her intestines, and the drugs are consciousness expanding drugs, and she gets hit in the stomach and the bag bursts open and she is flooded with an overdose of this mind expanding consciousness raising drug that basically allows her access to the totality of her neurology. So in the movie, the learned professor is giving a lecture about how mostly humans use 3 to 5% of their brains, and he begins to describe what would happen at the level of using 10%. At 10% of your brain, you would be able to control your biology. This doesn't sound like a lot because you think, wait, I can control my biology, like I can lift my arm to my mouth and drink water, but can you control your heart rate? Can you control your metabolism? Can you consciously control your digestion or your reproduction? When you get to this level, you begin to be able to do all of those things. And so at one point in the movie, she heals herself of a bullet wound instantaneously without even hardly noticing that it's happened. At 20%, the professor relates, you begin to be able to control other people's biology. And we see in the movie that Lucy, the main character, who is named in reference to what is the hominid ancestor of present humanity, the evolutionary leap between the less evolved Australopithecus and the more evolved Cro-Magnon, or Neanderthal. Even though I don't believe in all of that, check out the research work of Lloyd Pye and Everything You Know Is Wrong regarding non-humanoid hominids on Earth. But anyway, the idea that this Lucy, achieving consciousness through this mind-expanding drug, is the new missing link between who we were as humans and what we are moving into. At one point, she uses kind of a Vulcan mind meld. She touches someone else's forehead, and she uses her psychic faculties to reach into his mentality and get memories that were crucial information that she needed. She also, in the movie, speaks about totality consciousness, the noosphere. That's Noosphere, noosphere meaning planetary consciousness. When she achieves a certain level of development, she says, I can feel everything that's going on. So not only does she remember the totality of her memories from infanthood, and she can reach into other people's minds and feel their emotions and access their memories, she also begins to experience all life on Earth as a concurrent life experience of her own. At a certain point, the professor relates, the person will be able to control matter, and then we see her beginning to do that, like actually changing the structural form of the material world around us. So that would be like if you could use your mind to turn a solid door into a liquid and have the molecules flow out of your way so you could just walk through the door. Or using your mind to, let's say, hold a person frozen so that they couldn't, run and attack you. And then the professor goes on to relate that the next level of achievement is learning to control what we would call physics or time or reality. And at a certain point in the movie, I'm just taking a brief little drink here, the main character, Lucy, is able to stop time and go forward in time and go backwards in time. And she actually goes back in time and she meets her hominid ancestor that she is named after. And if you don't want to know the end of the movie, please don't listen to the end of my radio broadcast. If you're interested in knowing, because it has to do with Ascension, I'm moving forward. So, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, Lucy ingests all of the drugs that are remaining and blasts forward in consciousness, like turns into a pure beam of light and leaves behind nothing but an empty little black dress sitting in the chair behind her. And the scientists in the room that have been studying this whole process, they're like, what happened? Where'd she go? She's gone. And then one of their cell phone rings and the message on it says, I am everywhere. And the idea is that through consciousness transformation, the individual has expanded her identity to first encompass not just her own biological corporeal form, but to encompass other humans, then other beings that live on Earth, then all life on Earth, then all matter on Earth, then all matter, period. And then eventually she becomes a galactic consciousness. She becomes so imbued into every particle of matter that she is literally woven into the fabric of what is here. Now, Lucy was not a movie that contained sonic key codes in the same way that Interstellar did. It is more a movie that will give people a ray of hope, is what I want to say. Let's call it a cubic centimeter of chance. I draw that phrase from the works of Carlos Castaneda, where he was describing the character Don Juan Matus, his composite Mexican shaman who taught him about the ancient Mexican sorcerers and curanderos. And he would talk about what it takes in order to make this dimensional shift, that you must hold your skepticism in abeyance and cultivate the cubic centimeter of hope. We would call it the infinite improbability drive, the concept that this incredibly unlikely thing could happen, but that it could still happen. So in this technological and pharmaceutical age, one possible imagining is, oh, I take a magical drug and that allows me to transcend my present limitations. In another time and place, it might have been finding the fountain of youth. I found a magical fountain and drank of its waters, and then was able to live forever as an immortal and transcend my present limitations. Or in another time and place, it might be I met a magical being and they waved their magic wand and they pointed their magical stick at me and changed me on a deep level. The method doesn't really matter. It's different flavors of ice cream, but it's all the same concept, that some magical person, substance, or occurrence comes along to completely transform you from your previous limited state. One of the things that I don't agree with in the movie Lucy is that as she is having this increased intellectual awakening, she does not have a concomitant heart opening. But I will tell you that that is not what happens in reality. What does happen in reality is that as you achieve greater and greater connectivity, the more, humans would call it in this time and place, more neural connections, but it is really more energetic connections. The more sophisticated your system of connections becomes, the more you feel other people's feelings. You feel their pain. Like in the movie, Lucy is quite violent and she uses guns and knives and she hurts other people. I will tell you that when you start to achieve the levels of consciousness that she achieved, you will not feel violent, because it would be like stabbing yourself. You know something? In order to get what I need during my day, I do not subject my body to physical violence. I might need to wake up in the morning and make coffee, but I don't stab myself with a knife in order to do it. So when you begin to expand your identity and expand the boundaries of what you define as me versus not me, when you expand that boundary of me-ness to encompass other people and other living beings and the planet itself, what you recognize is that what you're doing to anything else, you're doing to yourself. And unless you're extremely self-destructive, which some people are, you choose not to cause yourself pain. So when you achieve high levels of mastery and being an adept, one of the hallmarks of that is using non-violent techniques to subdue any enemies or anyone who might be trying to harm you. And in the movie, I did see her start to do that. She started to freeze people in place instead of, shoot them with guns or whatever. But I really had to bring that up because like from Interstellar, you understand, there are heavy biological programs towards violence that are running in each of our bodies right now. And in order to become part of the galactic society, and in order to become part of the fabric of consciousness and be woven into that fabric like as a thread, not as a mere experiencer on the surface, it requires unconditional love. And that is what Lucy, the movie, did not explore, as the opening of your emotional, spiritual, and higher consciousness energy centers are connected to love, and not necessarily the romantic ideal of love, but the love that I spoke of earlier in terms of a tone of pure compassion and acceptance. It is a tone of non-judgment and releasing the desire to control others. So ironically, as you achieve the totality of your existence and you become totally powerful, your desire and need to control others reduces and shrinks. And eventually, when you become God, you are the totality, you know and can do everything, and you feel almost zero motivation to change anything because you are in a state of love and totally accepting the ideas, approach, value system, and stage of development of everyone around you. So reaching these higher levels of inner development, when you look around and you're like, wow, I'm a totally enlightened being. I've achieved, when I say the totality, unity consciousness. I've used 100% of what is inside of me, and I'm 100% connected to everything else. And when that happens, there is an opening of the heart, or in order for that to happen, your heart has to be open because it requires a lot of energy to be in that totality. And if you are judgmental, imagine Lucy in this movie being exposed to the whole of human culture and being judgmental and being like, no, that's bad, that's wrong, that's shameful, that's embarrassing, that's a no-no, that's naughty. Like, it would be an endless cycle of finger shaking, blame, pointing the finger of blame, saying you're bad, wrong, and naughty. You literally couldn't get anything done because you would be so busy just telling everyone how bad and wrong they are. And really what happens when you get to the higher levels is your perspective shifts and you're able to see the connection of events, the causality. This person is like this because of this. Like, one of the cool things in the movie, Lucy comes home to her roommate and types out an extensive prescription, says to her, you're having a problem with your liver and your kidneys. You need to change this and eat organic food in order to get better, and kind of just like walks out. This is how we would act. We would say, I perceive this in you. I offer you information and the opportunity to change if you choose, but I do not force it upon you. So, and that is compassion. I allow you your journey. I allow you to do what you need to do. So I'm nearing the end of this particular broadcast. Thank you for listening to me and allowing me to dip my toes into pop culture a little bit. In the future, when I perceive valuable, multimedia information, if it's books, TV shows, or movies, I will be certain to bring it to your attention, because that way you don't have to get lost in the sea of nonsense and things that are totally not worth exposing yourself to. There are a few gems of real nourishment. So interdimensional movie reviews will continue, and for now, this space telescope will be focusing on creating some wonderful artwork in my studio. Thank you for tuning in. Please tune in again next week.